nyina kwa basonko adeba Obramon Sam Jumede live our Ghana's #1 TV station. I say CTV. Dia meji so anope ne gargantuan lady. Ohine war can say a boa hene. And anope medi kai asha said yasada PSC. Ama nyankopon twediampon basayadom. And that's what the adomi and rane ma wada. Medamu nyina se wodosonko amoda ne die. Namode etche me shasie efi ya hwefo afrefo ene woni a ewofia se class media group moche wodo titiw ene penny kwantrefo ya wasanso eye me boss ba kope Gcons Group of Enterprises eye bra Edward Benedict Mate. Thank you very much for your time and ra my program no eye krabesh ene enkomo na ye ba bedini ye ba ben hono ne kakra ediama Sans my guest, my special guest, very pretty lady all the way from Jamaica, and Wabeka Iansa and Ano painting. I know you better put on a kakra, but me many send your bear as and when I'm common air cosonum and Chichima who draw a baby in ano. You bet me at Chemokama Ewochi Casemo. Now me do at Chemonti join your life. I want your Facebook page, you know, and yet CTV Ghana. Medium and a gargantuan lady, you know what, Cassabwan, and I may guess your friend Attorney Juanita Headley, one no any neighbor Bedi and common, and some are ye becanum, and some are winning that Ghana say and penny for Abba who the road to an at Shagay, sit you any asoya, one more share mamma, father, that's it in a bamboo musemo, one more account some, a sexual and human trafficking, sporting the signs, yeah, of course, way society. People are saying to blind eyes and who crowd won't ye enti Juanita Ababeka yensam enti anopesen a medical idea to Jano ye bed down de muka cra chini dear one te cram enti and nenum a bear straightly brofo enti no me many say bet me at shemo a day at show baby piano enti ya what journey life over your Facebook page no a CTV Ghana. Juanita, how are you?
Amazing. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. How is Ghana?
It's wonderful.
So, assuming you go back to your country, Jamaica, and they ask you, tell us something small about Ghana, how are you going to describe us? Our culture, the food that we eat, the society that you stayed in?
Well, first thing is I'm actually not from Jamaica. I'm from London. So
London, okay.
My parents are Jamaican, but I'm from London. If people ask me, tell us about Ghana, I will tell them the weather is beautiful. I love the fresh fruits and vegetables. The people are incredibly warm. There is a lot of Christianity everywhere. It is intertwined into absolutely everything and anything. And then I'll also tell them that for me, Ghana has beaches, it has activities, it has farmers market. There's so much to offer. So I'll definitely speak about all the great things because of course nowhere is perfect. Everywhere has their issues, but it's about having a positive attitude so you can enjoy your experience no matter where you are in the world.
People usually say Ghanaians are hospitable. Are you sure we are one of them?
That's a hard question to answer. Because for me, if I'm honest with you, I've struggled to have hospitality where my message is concerned. I've come to Ghana 4 times, and my desire is to educate people on human trafficking and child abuse prevention. But every time I come, it's like I'm up against resistance. I'm not up against people who are willing to stand beside me, to support me, to open up their church or school for my message.
Okay.
And so I would say that I have struggled in that sense. And then I'm a little biased. For me, India is the best country in the world. The people are the most hospitable. And I've been to 41 countries.
Ghana. Are you really sure about that?
41 countries, I think I'm allowed to say India is #1, but for me.
For you. Okay. Do you think they have any interior motive as to why they don't want you to preach your advocacy there?
Most definitely. I feel that the reason why I'm coming up against resistance is #1, because people don't think it's happening here. They don't think it applies to them. They believe that it is an immigration issue. It's not a domestic thing, which is trafficking of people in their home country. Okay. And then the other side is that some people will not be willing to pay for my services or to even share the offering on that particular Sunday. They'd rather keep the pulpit to themselves. But the Bible says people perish for lack of knowledge. Knowledge is power.
Really, you want Ghanaians to pay you for you advocating for something, a cause that you are interested in? Did you write to the Ministry for Gender, Children and Social Protection?
In fact, I appreciate you asking. I've written letters to all the different departments, the prison, the police, churches, schools. I have written letters, done things officially. Okay. I'm a U.S. lawyer. I've been a New York lawyer for 7 years, pro bono, which means unpaid. And so for me, I've been doing this work as an attorney, as someone who fights trafficking for at least 10 years, completely unpaid. I do not charge for my services, but we need money to survive. And so I provide my services for free, but I still should be remunerated for my travel and for my time. That money enables me to continue my work. Getting to Ghana required a flight ticket. When people support me financially, it enables me to travel to other parts of the country and the world to share this message.
So how do you finance your traveling and other stuff?
I appreciate you asking, and it's such a loaded question because I'm very much like a missionary. For those who know, in the Bible, Luke 10, Jesus told the disciples, when you go out, do not take gold and silver and dust off your feet. So for 10 years, I've traveled the world living with complete strangers. Literally, I meet people on the bus, the train. I meet people at random places, the church, the coffee shop. They open up their homes, their cars, and their wallets. And for 10 years, I literally have stayed with strangers. Why do I do that? When I travel without work authorization, it is illegal to work. And as a born-again Christian, I'm not willing to compromise. But if I sleep on someone's couch or floor, that is not illegal.
Enti ebusi obramu sabdumedi and agusa wo shaha CTV Ghana's #1 TV station. Yeni attorney Juanita and eguswa yedi nkomo now. And the topic ba ko dia ba ya wo bo ho de rode magana for no. And ya sha se ye ne edi medical bisa no. Ese Ghana kase wo ho o mine say dodo na kase Ghana for de ye hu broni anas ye hu ho ho aye so no say wo ye ya de mum but not to on no expectations send ya na wo hwe de mu no. And bisa say minim so fi Jamaica consider be and say England when what na chepa but the parent wo mo fi Jamaica enti eguso aye di nkomo fa no kwan ya wo fa so a ne dwumedi no wotimi enya nipa wo mbetimi abo ne chidom fa ne sikasem so yaka wasanso yo bi a wabere so we say attorney obi a wabere pro bono programs a wodo a waya wode ema nipa wo mo ehiamwa. Now the major topic, the major discussion wonam Ghana and we are singing na ya ogusa wo bo ho de ro etre encroford do na sexual abuse. I don't know why you chose that. Any reason?
Yeah, these are very loaded questions, but I love it. Quite simply, I was a victim of sexual abuse from the ages of 4 to 10. And as a result of the abuse...
Wait, 4 to 10?
That's right. My mother's first husband was sexually abusing me as a child, and it began with tickling. And so when I communicated to my mother at the age of 4, I told her my stepfather was tickling me and his hand slipped. A person's hands cannot slip to touch your private parts, but that was my childhood way of communicating. Unfortunately, my mother never kicked him out. She told me, don't let it happen again. Therefore, when it happened again, I never told her. And so for 6 years, I was a victim of attempted rape by my stepfather. And as a result of that abuse, it makes me vulnerable to being abused again or being trafficked. And so I have chosen to spread this message of education and empowerment because it comes from my own story of surviving childhood sexual abuse.
Well, so you think most kids are going through such ordeal in their homes and they can't speak out because our parents are like, no, you're okay, it's just a mistake, just let it go? Is it because mothers or wives are protecting their marriages?
Most definitely, and I appreciate you asking, because the reality is when it comes to abuse, it's often somebody you know. It is not a stranger. It is typically a family member, a friend, the house help, a teacher, a caregiver, pastor, elder. And I'm talking about people here in Ghana going through the exact same thing as me because they tell me. When I give my lectures, okay, they're not frequent enough in Ghana, but when I give my lectures, every time someone confides in me, I was sexually abused. And that breaks my heart, but it is the reality of what happens everywhere in the world, including right here.
Are you not scared the society is going to stigmatize you for speaking out?
You're so good at this. I'm like, wow, another loaded statement question, because in fact, 2 years ago, I was thrown in prison in the Caribbean because of my ministry. And so, of course, as a result of that, my mother is afraid that might happen again. But the God I serve will protect and safeguard me. But I tell you, as God is my witness, I was thrown in prison in St. Vincent and the Grenadines because allegedly I was a trafficker and allegedly I was investigating politicians in human trafficking. And so for 8 days, I slept on a table like this. And unfortunately, as a result of the trauma, I lost my short-term memory. But I continue my ministry despite being falsely imprisoned.
Eti ebusia Juanita oba fefe ne eguso ene ne di nkomo no ntino ne nsem a ye ka no eye ensem bia Ghana for I know say moni beje ho ye papa pesa nsem kwada dodo na ye ta sese wo mo ewo society mo no ya na enye better say but ne experience ba ko a wo share edi ama wiase nyina ne say wo se wo sa no wonya mfirihia nan ko be se du na ne stepfather ya cha say wo ne mo mo ene ne maame ene tie na ordinance akeka ne baby ana say Bosono sobone nanso wakachire ne maame a ne maame hyeda emma no eni wo mana so wo se bia na ebe ya mfumso se wo stepfather wo de ne nsa ekọ bia ya etesa but eba ne sa ne ema ne koye de ne de ma no se edu baby ono kra ne betimi apemu aka kire ne maame se emma ebia bibi sei ekoso and Ghana has a kra no onim se nipa dodo na e go through such a situation me bisa no question back ko se bibi sa no but it's obi ahu an order in sa atenetelo so asimesi we na as yeah that is very true and man no kwakwada table bi etese nia esi ye no bi a yegusu a ye ka say so I know they may ba my same bisa so say why is human trafficking so dear to your heart, attorney?
Because of surviving sexual abuse and because of the links. Most victims of sexual abuse, domestic violence, any type of abuse are vulnerable to being trafficked. In fact, in the United States, 90% of women in prostitution were sexually abused in their childhood. And so that means there is almost a target on your back. When you have been victimized sexually, emotionally, physically in your childhood, that affects you, it makes you vulnerable and at risk of exploitation. So even though I'm a speaker on exploitation, even though I have knowledge, I'm an expert, that doesn't mean I'm not vulnerable. Every one of us has vulnerability.
I had an opportunity of watching your video. I don't know whether it's a discussion or education. You were answering a question on how can you keep a secret?
That's right. It's a loaded question again, and I love that because we need to learn. Knowledge is power. Can you keep a secret comes out of my own personal story. When someone asks the question, can you keep a secret, you need to respond yes. Why? Because when that person comes up to you, they're trying to disclose something. And so you need to respond affirmatively so they can open up about whatever it is that they're going through. When I asked my grandfather and my aunt, can you keep a secret? I got an it depends. And as a result of that, I was a victim of attempted rape for 6 years of my life. What I explain to people, this is not about secret keeping. If someone comes up to you and says, can you keep a secret? You say yes. Then they would say, for example, Daddy is licking my cookie, which is a true story. A child came to school and said, Daddy is licking my cookie. Now, if a child says that to you, your next words, I have to break your trust and phone the police. I'll say that again. Can you keep a secret? Yes. Then she or he would say, for example, Daddy is licking my cookie. Then you would say, I have to break your trust and phone the police. Do not phone the accused. I heard you've been sexually abusing your daughter. He will deny it and hide the evidence. And let me repeat, this is not secret keeping. You are saying yes to hear the secret. Once you've heard it, communicate your next steps and then go off and do it. Because the reality is there are so many people around us with secrets who never disclose because you say it depends or no to the question. In fact, my book is called Can You Keep a Secret? Because I want us all to respond affirmatively so that when we're asked that question, that person, young or old, can open up and get the help to be protected.
Okay. Enti yeguso ya yedi nkomo yeni attorney Juanita and yakasa join your life and what your Facebook page and CTV Ghana. You like it, share, then you comment into our drink channel do not dia to question ana me bisa na say minya kwenya timi e share ne dwumedie ba ko I say wo ye bedwom nkasa ho dwumedie e dia ma manfo na question ba ko ana asasem ba ko no wo kam obisa ye say me pacho betimi dia asem we asie edi amamia na anu ye shonko a wode ema no se ne be betimi aboa ma wo ye bad time na sɛ wo ba ɛka biribi sɛ kyerɛ wo san sɛ wɔgye wo di nti na wɔka saa asɛm no akyerɛ wo a wobɛhu kwan a wobɛtumi ayi ano afa mu na Dinsmore care aba na ɔsɛ Juanita is strong and doing a great spreading the information to help others. Juanita is strong. Okay. Thank you so much on the subject. Is it a boy? Okay, a man says you're doing a great job. How can I spot an abusive person?
The first thing is to listen, and that's really important because far too often victim survivors feel like we're not being heard. You need to listen to what the child is saying. Don't become emotional. Don't voice your opinions. Because what a lot of people don't realize, often, but not always, oftentimes, our abuser is somebody we're close to. Not every abuser threatens us into silence. Some of us victim survivors have Stockholm Syndrome where we love our perpetrator. But I don't mean romantic love. So for me, my stepfather was my best friend. If I open up to you and say my stepfather's abusing me and you get angry and start calling him names, that isn't going to help me because I loved him as a stepfather. It is important to listen, to not judge, to allow the child to express or the young person or the adult to express what's going on and then to take the right steps. But you've got to give them that confidence that you're there to support and to help, not to gossip. Because far too often we are afraid to speak up because of fear you will gossip. And that is not what you need to do. What you need to do is inform the authorities. Once that person knows, those are the steps you're taking. But listening is key. When a child comes to you and says, uncle kissed me, auntie did this, too often parents brush it off. That's not what they meant. Let's not brush things off and let's accept, actually, maybe that kissing wasn't appropriate and dig deeper because it may start with a kiss and lead to rape, attempted rape, sexual abuse.
I can tell you for a fact in Ghana, most parents are like, no, you cannot discuss sexual activities with your child. Is that wrong?
Absolutely. Because by not discussing sexual activity, that doesn't mean to say you're protecting the child. I'll say it again. People perish for lack of knowledge. The Bible is clear. You need to educate your children because if you don't, they will be innocent and get themselves sometimes into situations or circumstances that could be avoided. When children are very young, they're learning and growing, and grooming is one of the ways that often perpetrators get a child to become putty in their hands. Knowledge is power. It can be uncomfortable talking about sex, but it's a lot more uncomfortable when your child is victimized sexually. So let's do the right thing by having these godly, biblical conversations with our children about sex, sexual abuse, because even in the Bible, there was rape, abuse, and incest. So it is not new.
That is very true.
It's biblical to discuss it, but there's a way to do it that's appropriate, that your child will not experiment or explore sexually, which we want to avoid.
Stage?
All ages. You use the right language when they're very small, but it is important not to use terms like cookie, pumpkin, butterfly, banana, cherry, sexual organs, private parts. Use the correct terms.
We should mention the name vagina, penis to the cat. You sure about that?
Private parts, sexual organs is also something that might be more comfortable. Genitals may be more comfortable, but not cookie or banana. Because when the child says, Daddy was licking my banana, no one knows that is the boy's private parts. Let's use the right terms.
Okay, you spoke about grooming, but I'm coming. Let me take this message. AFOC, attaining the fullness of Christ. Great job, Juanita. Juanita, very important contributions on this important subject. Parents are to be very attentive to such critical issues of abuse. Okay, that's nice. So what is the grooming about?
Thank you for asking, because that, I believe, is the key to protecting your children. You're a brilliant interviewer, by the way, I must say.
Thank you.
These questions are perfect.
Thank you.
Grooming can be answered in one word: preparation.
Okay.
Preparation for work, preparation for school, or preparation for sex. Grooming is when someone does nice things to you for the purpose of pimping you out. So that means buying you KFC, MTN mobile data, somebody paying for your gas, your electricity, somebody doing nice things to you. And far too often when children are abused, it starts with grooming. But because that conversation never happened, the child has no knowledge of what is taking place. My stepfather groomed me. He gave me candy, alcohol pops, let me stay up late, listen to my problems. Listening can be a form of grooming. I meet a lot of girls and women who date men 10 or 20 years older, and when I ask them why, they say, because he listens to me. Listening can be a form of grooming. And when you don't listen to your child, a perpetrator of sexual abuse definitely will.
During your lecturing, I heard something like you can be at home and be pimped.
That's right.
How?
For example, you could be born in Kaswa